Jason Statham ambushed by a gang in broad daylight. But the shocking twist will leave you speechless. What starts as a brutal attack in the park turns into an international manhunt, a hidden past, and a truth that could collapse entire governments. Watch the mind-blowing story that's rewriting everything we thought we knew about the action star. Like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments if you believe the world needs more heroes like this. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon in Hyde Park, the kind of London day where clouds linger overhead like gossip, but the sun still makes a brave appearance here and there, dancing through the trees like a spotlight on life itself. Jason Statham, dressed in a simple gray hoodie, black joggers, and trainers, was out on one of his favorite routines. A brisk walk followed by some bodyweight exercises by the pull-up bars near Serpentine Lake. Despite being one of the most recognizable action stars on the planet, Jason had a talent for blending in when he wanted to. No security, no entourage, just a water bottle and an old pair of wireless earbuds playing a podcast about Stoic philosophy. He wasn't looking for attention. He never did. To the families pushing strollers and the teenagers lying on the grass glued to their phones, he was just another fit, middle-aged man doing dips. The occasional jogger did a double take. Is that who I think it is? But few dared to approach. He carried an energy that said, "Please don't. It had been a good day. A quiet one. Peaceful." But peace is a fragile thing. Jason was midway through a set of elevated push-ups when he heard the first insult. "Hey, old man, you working out or having a seizure?" He didn't flinch. He learned long ago not to respond to juvenile jabs. 99% of the time, they wanted a reaction. You gave them silence, and they moved on. Jason kept going, finishing his reps with perfect form. His breathing was steady, his heart calm. But the voice came again, this time closer. "You deaf, mate? Or just too scared to answer?" Jason stood up, slowly. He turned around, his face expressionless, just enough to get a look. 4 of them, maybe 5. Late teens, early 20s. All in matching black tracksuits and trainers. The type sold in bulk from corner stores with more stolen goods than groceries. Tattoos inked across knuckles and necks. Jawlines tight with arrogance. One of them twirling a chain in his fingers like it was a toy. They were laughing. Not the laughter of kids having fun, but the brittle, barking kind that hides fear behind cruelty. Jason kept his voice even. "I'm just finishing my workout, fellas. Don't let me stop you enjoying the park." The gang leader, the tallest one, with dyed blonde dreadlocks and a chipped incisor, stepped forward, close enough for Jason to smell the cheap cologne and cigarette smoke baked into his hoodie. "Oh, you ain't stopping us. But maybe you can entertain us a little more. Go on in, show us some of those movie moves. Do a flip or something." Jason sighed, not out of fear, but out of disappointment. "Trust me, you don't want this." "Nah, I do," the leader replied, chest puffed. "In fact, I insist." "Or what? You gonna call security with your Hollywood money?" The others laughed again. Jason could feel the attention in the air shifting. A few dog walkers were starting to notice, unsure whether this was a prank or something real. A cyclist slowed to a stop near the bench. Phones were beginning to discreetly rise. Jason didn't want a scene, but the gang leader stepped forward again, too close this time, and gave Jason a shove. Not hard, just enough to test him. Jason didn't move. His feet stayed rooted, his eyes calm. That shook the gang leader more than a punch would have. "You're messing with the wrong bloke," Jason said quietly, almost like he was talking to a mirror. The gang leader laughed nervously and turned to his boys. "He's scared, innit? Look at him." But one of the younger gang members wasn't laughing. He was staring at Jason like he recognized him. Not from the movies, from somewhere else. Before he could speak, the leader lunged again, this time with a clenched fist aimed at Jason's face. What happened next was so fast, most of the bystanders didn't even see it properly. Jason ducked, sidestepped, and tapped the gang leader behind the knee with a precision strike. The kid dropped like a sack of bricks, stunned, not hurt yet. "I told you," Jason said. "You don't want this." The gang froze. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. But the smallest one, the one with the twitchy leg and nervous energy, pulled something from his waistband. A knife. The glint of the blade caught the afternoon sun, and the mood changed in an instant. Jason's posture shifted. No more calm. No more patience. Don't do this, he said. It's not worth it. But fear drives stupid decisions, and ego can kill faster than any weapon. The kid lunged. Jason moved like a shadow under a spotlight. He parried the kid's arm, turned the knife inward, and had him disarmed in less than 2 seconds. The kid fell back, clutching his wrist, crying out. But that was the match that lit the fire. The others rushed him at once. The next few moments were chaos, a blur of limbs, grunts, and gasps from the crowd. Jason didn't fight with showy martial arts. There were no spin kicks or acrobatics. He fought the way real fighters fight, with control, efficiency, and the solemn weight of someone who hates violence but knows it better than anyone. One went down with a dislocated shoulder, another a broken nose. The others backed off, realizing too late that they were outmatched by a man twice their age and 10 times their discipline. The gang leader scrambled to his feet, bleeding from his elbow, chest heaving. "Who the hell are you?" he panted. Jason just looked at him. But before he could answer, the quiet kid, the one who hadn't moved, who looked at Jason like he knew something, spoke up. His voice trembled. "He's not just an actor," he said. "He used to be one of them." The leader frowned. "One of what?" The kid looked around, as if the words weighed 100 pounds. "The guys who don't need backup. The ones who used to clean up the kind of messes we make." Jason met his eyes, and in that second, something passed between them. Recognition. Shame. Respect. But the moment was broken by sirens. Someone had called the police. Jason didn't wait. He turned around, walked to the bench where his water bottle sat, and picked it up calmly. He glanced back once, making sure no one was seriously injured. Then he walked away, hoodie up, earbuds back in. But the story doesn't end there. Because what Jason didn't know, what no one in the park knew, was that this wasn't a random attack. It was planned, and the real reason behind it would blow the world's mind. The video hit social media before Jason even made it back to his flat. Shot from a shaky iPhone by a teenager near the bike racks. It started with the gang's jeers, caught the first few pushes, and crystal clear footage of Jason dismantling 5 grown men in under 40 seconds. It didn't show him walking away. It didn't show restraint. It didn't show the knife being pulled. Instead, it ended with 2 of the attackers on the ground and Jason's back turned, walking away into the distance, hoodie up, calm, composed. The caption read, "Jason Statham beats up gang in London Park." Within an hour, it had 2 million views. By morning, 10. By lunch, 25. The comments were a firestorm, some praising him, others demanding his arrest, all making assumptions. He's a thug with a camera crew. He's the real deal. He's washed up and trying to go viral. The video had become a Rorschach test for a divided world. But the real chaos hadn't even started yet. Across the city, in an unmarked office near Soho, a man named Alan Trentfield sat at a desk littered with folders, coffee mugs, and an old Nokia burner phone. Alan wasn't just anyone. He was MI5, or had been officially until 7 years ago. Unofficially, he still operated on the periphery of Black Ops intelligence, the kind of retired agent who never really left the game. He still kept tabs on old contacts. Jason Statham was one of them, not because of fame, because of history. Alan replayed the park footage for the 3rd time, this time slowing it down frame by frame. Most viewers were busy admiring Jason's fighting skill, but Alan was looking for something else, something only someone like him would notice. And there it was, in the brief flash of the blade, in the attacker's grip, a marking. Not a brand logo, not a scratch from the street. It was a sigil, etched deliberately into the handle of a knife, just beneath the thumb rest. 3 overlapping circles with a triangle inside. Alan froze. His blood ran cold. He had seen that symbol before, years ago, in files that had been burned, on walls in cities no one visited, tattoos on bodies left behind during secret missions the public never heard about. It was the mark of a private paramilitary network called Null Division, and it meant only one thing. The park attack was not random. Meanwhile, Jason was in his modest flat in Camden, nursing a slight bruise on his forearm with a pack of frozen peas. He was more irritated than shaken, not by the fight, but by the noise it had caused. He hadn't had peace in years, and this wasn't going to help. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered out of instinct. Hello. A voice he hadn't heard in a long time. Jason. It's Alan. Jason didn't speak for a moment. You still alive? He finally said. Barely. And judging by the park video, you're doing your best to get yourself killed in broad daylight. Wasn't looking for a fight. It found me. That wasn't a gang, mate. Not a real one. Jason sat up straighter. What do you mean? Check the blade. Pause at frame 18. Top right corner. Look for the triangle. Jason opened his laptop. He found a clearer version of the video, zoomed in, and paused at the moment the blade flashed toward the sun. He saw it. 3 rings. 1 triangle. His face changed. Null division, he said flatly. They're active again, Alan replied. And they use kids. That's what bothers me. Jason leaned back, the weight of memory hitting him like gravity. Why now? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But you need to know something else. One of those lads, the one who never moved? His name's Kieran Hodge. He's not street trash. He's been flagged before. Accessed restricted sites. Looked up locations tied to decommissioned operations. Jason narrowed his eyes. He knew who I was. Not as a celebrity. As something else. Alan's voice went quiet. Yeah, that's what scares me. Someone told him who you really are. For years, Jason had buried that past. Before Hollywood, before the Transporter and Fast and Furious, before all the red carpets, Jason had served. Not just in Her Majesty's Armed Forces. He'd been recruited into a classified unit, Black Section 9, trained to deal with threats the public would never be allowed to imagine. He wasn't just muscle. He was precision, intelligence, a ghost with a mission. But he left it all behind when the government began cutting corners, outsourcing classified operations to unaccountable private hands. That's when Null Division was born. Rogue agents, mercenaries, disavowed but dangerously connected. Jason walked away the day they killed a village to cover a botched mission. He left the life. He thought he left the enemies too. Apparently not. The next morning, Jason returned to the park. He didn't come for revenge. He came for answers. He found them in the form of Kieran Hodge, the quiet one, now sitting alone on the same bench where Jason had left his water bottle 2 days ago. No gang, no threats, just a hoodie, a backpack, and a scared, pale face. Kieran looked up. You came, he said. Jason sat beside him, arms crossed. You tried to kill me. Why wouldn't I? Kieran shook his head violently. No, I didn't. I swear. I didn't even want to be there. But you were there. Because they made me. Because they said if I didn't, they'd hurt my mom. Jason clenched his jaw. Who's that? Kieran pulled out his phone. Shaking, he showed Jason a message. Encrypted, untraceable. The sender simply called themselves S. The message read, be near the target. Watch what happens. Do not interfere. Do not warn him. If you do, your mother dies. And attached beneath that was a photo of Jason, taken 2 days before the attack. At his flat, from inside the building. Jason froze. Someone was watching him, tracking him. But what he didn't yet know, what neither of them could have imagined, was that Kieran's mother wasn't hostage. She was the key to everything. And what she was hiding would make Jason question everything he thought he knew about loyalty, memory, and himself. The wind shifted as they sat on that park bench, 2 generations of pain and survival sharing silence. Jason stared at the phone in Kieran's trembling hands, still absorbing the weight of what he'd seen. The photo wasn't just an invasion of privacy. It was a threat, a personal, surgical strike aimed at reminding him that he was never really out. They got into my flat, Jason said aloud, almost to himself. Kieran nodded. I think they've had you on file for years. My mom, she tried to tell me once. I didn't believe her. Not until the messages started. Jason's eyes narrowed. What does your mom have to do with Null Division? The kid hesitated and then finally said something that made Jason feel the air thin around him. Her name's Marianne Shaw. Jason went still. For a moment, his breathing stopped. That name, a name he hadn't heard in nearly 20 years. He stood up so fast the bench rocked. That's not possible, he said. Marianne Shaw is dead. She died in the Sudan operation. No, Kieran said, rising too. She didn't. 2 hours later, they stood outside a small terraced house in the south end of London. It looked unremarkable. Peeling paint, weeds in the front garden, a broken doorbell, the kind of place people walk past without a second glance. Jason's heart pounded anyway. This house had a shadow. Kieran fumbled with a key and opened the door slowly. She's not well. She doesn't remember things sometimes. Other days, she remembers everything. The smell hit Jason first, that unmistakable mix of old books, damp wood, and something metallic beneath it all. The hallway was narrow, dimly lit, wallpaper peeling like burnt skin. But as they moved further in, Jason saw something that made his jaw tighten. Photos, dozens of them, taped to the walls. String connecting faces to places, red circles drawn with thick permanent markers. Most were out of focus, torn, or blurred, but every now and then, Jason saw someone he recognized. Agents, targets, locations, missions he hadn't thought about since the early 2000s. This wasn't just a woman suffering memory loss. This was a map, and at the center of it, Jason's photo, younger, dressed in black fatigues, holding a silenced SIG sour in a jungle clearing. Pinned dead center on the living room wall. She kept records, Kieran said, even when they told her not to, even after she vanished. Said it was insurance. From the back of the house came the sound of a kettle boiling and a voice, soft, warbled, yet unmistakably sharp beneath the tremble. Kieran? Is someone with you? Jason followed the sound into a small kitchen, where an older woman sat in a wheelchair, eyes pale and watery, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her hair was white now, her frame thin, but her gaze was still a weapon. She looked at Jason for a long, trembling moment. "You're taller than I remember," she said. Jason nearly whispered. "You were supposed to be dead." "So were you," she answered. "But we're both too stubborn for that." He sat down, cautiously, like one might sit across from a loaded pistol with a heartbeat. "You faked your death. They faked it for me. Said I knew too much. Said they'd protect my son if I disappeared." Jason looked at Kieran. "He doesn't even know what you did." "No," she said, her voice heavy with regret. "But it's time he did." She told them everything. How after Sudan, she discovered files pointing to the early formation of Null Division, a rogue splinter cell formed not by enemies, but by insiders. Politicians, CEOs, and intelligence chiefs who wanted operations without oversight. Plausible deniability. Hired killers with government funding. She said she stole a drive. Something small, something she didn't fully understand at the time. Something they wanted back badly enough to kill her for. But instead of dying, she vanished, slipped into the gray space between life and legend, watching from the shadows as the world forgot her. Until now, because recently, someone found her. "They didn't just find me," she said. "They tested me, sent warnings, threats. Then they found Kieran and used him to get to me." Jason finished grimly. She nodded. "Because you're the only one who can finish what we started." Jason clenched his fists. "I'm not that man anymore." "You don't have to be," she said. "But I need you to look at something." She reached beneath the cushion of her wheelchair and pulled out a worn leather folder, the kind that used to be reserved for Black Ops handovers. Inside, a single USB stick taped to a handwritten note. Jason read it. His throat tightened. "If anything happens to me, the map will find the signal. The signal will open the safe house. And inside the safe house is the truth." What map?" Jason asked. Marianne looked past him toward the wall of photos and red string. "The one you've been walking through this whole time." Jason stood, approached the collage on the wall. At first, it looked like chaos. Years of paranoia, scribbled names, mugshots. But then he saw it. The pattern. Each face, each place, each thread formed a shape. Not random. A map. Coordinates were hidden in the connections. Dates were embedded in the photos. When layered together, it revealed a location. Jason took a picture of it and entered the coordinates into his phone. It pointed to a forest in Wales, Brecon Beacons National Park. Remote. Desolate. Perfect for a secret. Marianne's voice broke his concentration. "They'll try to stop you before you reach it. Let them try." But just as he turned to leave, Kieran stepped forward. "I'm going with you." Jason raised an eyebrow. "This isn't your fight. It is now." Jason looked at Marianne, who gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "He's his father's son," she said quietly. Jason froze. "Wait, his what?" "We never told you," she said. "Because we weren't allowed to." "But Kieran—" She paused, looked at the boy. "Kieran's father was MI5. One of yours. Disappeared during the Warsaw mission." Jason's stomach twisted. "James Hodge." Marion nodded, eyes watering. "They never told you what happened to him, did they?" Jason looked at Kieran again. Suddenly, the way the kid moved, the way he read a room, made sense. But before he could say anything else, a window shattered. A flashbang rolled across the floor. Jason threw his arm around Kieran and Dove, covering Marianne with his body as the explosion lit up the room with deafening light. Voices outside. Boots. Null Division had found them, and the race to reach the truth had just turned into a war. The blast left Jason's ears ringing and the room thick with dust and panic. He didn't think. He moved. 1 second he was covering Marianne and Kieran with his body, and the next he was dragging them through the kitchen toward the back exit, shoving over furniture to slow whatever was crashing through the front. Gunshots cracked through the air, but Jason had counted the timing between the flashbang and the breach. He knew these people, knew their training. He'd ridden it once. Out the back, Jason barked, lifting Marianne into his arms without a second thought. Kieran followed close behind, clutching his mother's worn satchel, which now held the USB stick and map photos. The kid's face was pale but determined. Jason kicked open the back door, just as 2 masked men rounded the house from the alley. He dropped low, rolled forward, and swept one attacker's legs from under him. The man hit the ground with a dull thud. Jason didn't waste time. He slammed the second one's head against the brick wall, then grabbed the first pistol before the guy could recover. They ran, through the back garden, over a crumbling fence, down into the warren of narrow alleys behind the estate. Jason knew the area. He knew where to lose a tail, but they couldn't run forever, and Null Division would keep coming. They needed to disappear. 2 hours later, they were inside an abandoned train maintenance depot near the outskirts of London. Jason had used it years ago as a fallback, one of several grain nests from his Black Section 9 days. It had electricity, a working water line, and most importantly, no digital footprint. He was pacing while Kieran tended to a shallow cut on Marianne's arm. She'd taken the blast well. Too well, almost, she'd seen this kind of chaos before. This wasn't the first time she'd been hunted. Jason stared at the crude paper map they'd reassembled on the concrete floor. The coordinates pointed to a location in the Brecon Beacons, an old mine shaft that had supposedly been sealed years ago. Jason had been there once, during a mission that was wiped from official records. "What's inside the safe house?" he asked. Marianne's voice cracked slightly. "Proof. Names. Contracts. Video. The entire Null Division infrastructure. The moment you open that safe house and go public, they burn. All of them. And that's why they sent a gang after me first," Jason murmured. "To see if I'd take the bait." Marianne nodded. "And now that you did, they'll come with everything." Jason looked at Kieran. "Still want in?" "Now more than ever." They left that night. No cars. Too easy to track. They used old back roads, hitched a ride with a sympathetic long-haul trucker Jason vaguely knew from his diving days, and finally reached Brecon Beacons by sunrise. The forest was silent. Beautiful. Deceptive. Jason led them through a trail no longer marked on public maps. His steps were precise, his senses alert. They reached a steel door buried beneath a false rock wall on the side of cliff. It was rusted, covered in moss and vines. Anyone else would have thought it part of the landscape. But Jason saw the tiny recess in the metal, the fingerprint scanner hidden beneath grime. "Marianne," he said, "this needs you." She stepped forward, eyes tired but resolute. Her thumb pressed against the scanner. A green light blinked. The door hissed open. Inside, it was cold and dry, a long tunnel lined with concrete, leading into what looked like an old NATO bunker. Jason walked in first, sweeping the room. No tripwires, no signs of recent entry. They reached the core chamber, a reinforced vault door with a numeric keypad. Marianne entered a series of digits from memory. There was a long beep, and the door creaked open. Inside, a single table. On it, a laptop inside a radiation-proof case, a backup drive, several manila folders, and a sealed envelope with Jason's name on it. He opened it. Inside was a photo of a younger Jason standing beside another man. Broad shoulders, strong jaw, steel blue eyes. James Hodge, Kieran's father. On the back of the photo was a message, handwritten in black ink. If you're reading this, I didn't make it, but you still can. Burn them all. J.H. Jason closed his eyes. A long moment passed. We go public, he said. We leak everything. Expose every asset, every off-the-books hit. The whole thing. Marion nodded slowly. Once we do, there's no going back. Good, Jason said. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. But just as he reached for the laptop to upload the files, the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. And in that moment, they realized the safe house wasn't safe anymore. Voices in the tunnel. Footsteps. 5, maybe 6. Jason motioned for Kieran and Marianne to hide behind the supply crates lining the wall. He stayed low, gun raised, eyes narrowed. Then the door creaked open again. But it wasn't who he expected. It was Alan Trentfield. Jason exhaled. You scared the hell out of me. You should be scared, Alan said, stepping inside. But something was off. Jason's instinct screamed. Alan's posture, the way his hand hovered near his belt. Not defensive. Poised. Jason raised the gun. Don't do it, Alan. Alan's smile was tired. Regretful. You don't get it, do you? They were always going to come for you. I just made sure I wasn't in the way when they did. Jason's heart dropped. You sold me out. I tried to warn you, Alan said. Try to steer you off. But you wouldn't stop digging. Because people deserve the truth. The truth. Alan shook his head. The truth doesn't matter anymore. It's too late for truth. All that's left is power. And what do they promise you? Jason asked coldly. A pension? Your life back? Alan's expression broke. Just for a moment. My daughter, he whispered. They took her. Told me if I helped you disappear, I'd get her back. Jason's hand didn't waver. You think they'll honor that? Alan didn't answer. Behind him, another set of footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Jason turned his gun toward the entrance. But it was too late. A figure stepped inside. One Jason hadn't seen in over a decade. James Hodge. Alive. Older. Weathered. Wearing the insignia of Null Division. Kieran stepped out from hiding, frozen. Dad. Jason's gun lowered an inch, heart racing. James looked at his son, then at Jason. We need to talk, he said. The air in the bunker was thicker than the concrete walls around them. The silence that followed James Hodge's words was not empty. It was crushing. A reunion meant to be impossible. Now happening in the bowels of a hidden fortress meant to expose the darkest secrets of modern intelligence. Kieran's face was a war zone. Hope, confusion, betrayal, all battling for control. Jason Statham, still holding his pistol, stared at the man who once stood beside him as a brother in arms. James Hodge had been a legend. Clean, efficient, incorruptible. Then he vanished during a black op in Warsaw. The file said presumed dead. They never found a body. Now here he was, alive, wearing the insignia of the enemy. This some kind of trick? Jason asked, voice flat. James stepped forward, palms raised. No trick, just truth. A truth I had to become the villain to live long enough to tell. Your Null Division. Yes, James said without flinching. Jason's grip tightened. And you came here to what? Kill us? Silence your son? Erase everything. James looked at Kieran, and something flickered across his face. A grief too sharp to be faked. No, I came here to help you finish it. The silence returned. Jason didn't lower his weapon. You expect me to believe that after all these years, you let your son think you were dead. You let Marion hide, thinking you were compromised. And now you want to play the hero? James took a breath. Measured. Heavy. I didn't vanish. I was captured. They made me choose. Join them, or they kill everyone I care about. And you chose survival. I chose to wait, James corrected. To climb their ladder. To rise inside Null Division high enough to tear them down from the top. But I couldn't do it alone. That's why I sent the warning. That's why I fed the photo to Kieran. That's why I set this all in motion. Jason blinked. You sent the gang? No, but I knew they would come. I knew once your face was on every screen in the world, they'd move. I just had to make sure you moved too. Jason processed it. Alan did what he had to. He bought us time. Behind them, Alan stood with his hands open. There was no more pretending. Just guilt. They never meant to give me my daughter, he said quietly. I see that now. Jason finally lowered the pistol. Not out of trust, but out of exhaustion. So what's in the safe house, James? What did you come here to do? James nodded to the table, to the laptop encased in radiation shielding. That drive holds everything. Names, contracts, covert funding channels. Locations of every ghost prison and off-the-record operation Null Division ever ran. Enough to collapse the organization and a few governments with it. Jason's eyes narrowed. Then why not leak it yourself? James stepped closer to his son. Because I can't. Not anymore. I'm too deep. The moment I try to transmit anything, they'll know where I am and send a kill team. But you're still clean. You're unpredictable. That's your power now. Kieran's voice finally returned. You left me. For this. James looked like the words punched through his chest. I left because I thought if I stayed, you'd end up like me. I didn't know they'd use you. And I'm sorry. More than I can ever say. Jason looked at them both. The final pieces of the puzzle weren't falling into place. They were snapping into place. A man who faked his death to protect the truth. A woman who vanished to preserve the evidence. A son dragged into the shadows of a war he never asked for. And now, Jason Statham, the man the world thought they knew, stood between all of them and a firestorm waiting to be unleashed. Then we leak it, Jason said. And what happens when the world sees what it costs to keep them safe? James asked. The black sites, the secret wars, the puppet governments. Are you ready for that? Jason's eyes didn't waver. Truth doesn't need permission. They opened the case, plugged the drive into the laptop. There were no passwords, just a folder titled Reckoning. Jason connected to a secure satellite uplink, a channel still live from his MI5 past. One last favor buried in the bones of a network long since abandoned. He hit send all. It took 3 minutes. 3 minutes of silence, of breathing the moment, of accepting that life, from this point forward, would never be the same. The moment the upload hit 100%, a green checkmark lit up the screen. And then, nothing. No explosion. No sirens. Just a single line of text, auto-generated from the drive's command center. Transmission received. Commence distribution. Jason turned to James. We done. James nodded. We're done. Jason exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. Then a low rumble echoed in the tunnel. Not from outside. From beneath. James grabbed Kieran and shoved him against the wall just as the floor under the safe house began to crack open. Explosives. Fail-safe systems. The entire site was rigged. Jason yanked Marion back, covering her with his body as fire bloomed from below. The vault went up in a blast that sent shockwaves into the mountains. The data had transmitted, but the evidence, the safe house, the people in it, erased. All except one thing. Jason had dragged the photo of James and himself off the table in the final second. A memento, a reminder of what they'd survived, of what it cost. 1 week later, the news broke globally. Whistleblower leak exposes global shadow operation. Null Division uncovered. Private war network funded by governments. Footage of Jason Statham goes viral again, this time for the right reasons. Jason never spoke to the press. He never needed to. The story told itself. Marion disappeared again, this time under a new name, a new identity, somewhere peaceful. Alan vanished shortly after, leaving behind only a letter and a bank account full of money he refused to use. James Hotch, no one ever found a body. But occasionally, in the shadowy corners of contested borders, whispers of a gray-haired man dismantling illegal weapons operations would surface. Kieran, meanwhile, chose his own path. Not as an agent, not as a fighter, but as a truth-bringer. He started an independent watchdog organization dedicated to transparency in government contracts. And Jason? He went back to the park. Same bench, same path, no fans. No noise. Just a man who had once been part of the darkness, choosing, every day, to stand in the light.